Dear colleague, welcome to this lecture where I will give an overview of how to start a DBS practice. This is quite a challenging topic considering how much these circumstances can differ between persons, departments and countries, and it is impossible to give a detailed blueprint. However, I will attempt to list a number of points of importance, and I will assume that we are here dealing with a colleague and a department without previous experience of DBS. And if you are starting with DBS, then I assume that it might be a good idea to know how to do DBS. And the first thing to remember is that you are not alone, and that there are many that can help you, and that a good network is most valuable. No one knows everything, and I myself get many questions from colleagues who need help regarding indications, targeting, etc. And I often contact colleagues to ask for their advice. No one will consider less of you for asking for help, and many colleagues are flattered that you consider their opinion to be of value. So make sure to be a part of the stereotactic functional community and visit interesting meetings in order to extend your network and make new friends. And apply for membership in your national or continental society for stereotactic and functional neurosurgery, which in most cases will also make you a member of the World Society. These are great resources for education and especially for creating a network with colleagues within this field. Further, we should not forget our friends in the industry. It is true that the ultimate goal of the industry is the accumulation of capital. However, besides this, the interest between the healthcare sector and the manufacturers are mainly overlapping, provided that we have a situation without monopoly. We can assume that it is in the interest of the industry to provide us with help, since this is likely to increase their profit. If we look specifically at the educational role of the industry, then it is not surprising that their contributions is substantial and normally of a high quality. They are providing various courses and personalized training such as peer-to-peer visits, etc. And my recommendation to you is to never be afraid of asking the industry for help regarding educational questions. If you're starting to learn DBS from the beginning, then the best thing is of course to get a good teacher. But unfortunately, the number and time of potential teachers is limited. One can of course go and visit someone for a couple of days, but this is more for getting inspired. We can further visit a conference or consult the literature, but the literature is often too scientific and does not tell you how to do. Finally, we have our traditional courses, such as the ESSFN course series, including basics of stereotactic neurosurgery, movement disorders and psychiatric neurosurgery. These courses are great, but of limited availability. And it can be difficult to remember everything from the in-real-life courses, while you might consult an online version at the Stereotactic Academy as well. You can access this whenever you want and wherever you are, as long as you have an internet connection, and all content is completely free. Here you can find courses and lectures on indications, patient selection, how to use the frame, implantation of a DBS system, programming and much more. And the additional material provided in the 250 lectures will let you journey far above the essentials if you find any aspect to be of special interest. And I will in this lecture mention a number of lectures of potential interest for those starting a DBS practice. After you have achieved a basic understanding of how to do DBS, then it is probably a good idea to get a robot, a frameless system, or a stereotactic frame for placement of the DBS electrodes. If you are just starting, then you will probably not invest in a robot, and these are an advantage mainly if you are doing SEEG with multiple electrodes and provides few advantages in DBS. Frameless disposable systems are popular mainly in the USA, but this is a costly option, and thus probably not provide the same accuracy as a traditional stereotactic frame. Thus, you will probably invest in a stereotactic frame. And even though there are many stereotactic frames, most are only of historical interest, and there are two systems that are dominating the modern market. And it is probably a good idea to have a look at these and to ask your colleagues about their experience and perhaps to visit them to see how they are used before you decide. And in some countries, the DBS manufacturer can arrange for you to borrow a frame for your procedures, but this is not an optimal solution. Then, before you do your first surgery, I suggest that you practice with the frame on a doll so you are familiar with its use before actually using it in a patient, and you will find detailed step-by-step lectures on the Stereotactic Academy on how to use these different frames and all aspects on how to implant a DBS electrode. One can do the calculations of the target coordinates manually in a workstation, as seen here, but I believe that everyone is using a navigation system today. There are several options on the market that are quite different, with different advantages and disadvantages, so have a look at more than one of these before you decide. Further, it is likely that the provider of the frame and/or the provider of your DBS system might make you an offer regarding also the navigation system. You need to decide also on how and when to do the imaging. Will you make an intraoperative MRI with the frame on, or will you perform a preoperative MRI without the frame and fuse it with an intraoperative CT or O-arm investigation? And how will you verify the location of the electrode? And concerning the MRI investigations, we can all agree that it is probably an advantage to see what you're aiming at, and today it should not be difficult to get MRI images of a good quality. However, you will not automatically get good images, and a good idea is to sit down with your radiologist and MRI physicist and show them the imaging specifications of the navigation system and frame, discuss the importance of possible distortion, and show them images of good quality and explain to them what structures you need to see and why. When they understand what you need, it is easier for them to suggest adequate MRI sequences. It is also a good idea to decide on how you will document the accuracy, so that you can later take this into consideration when doing the targeting. Further, you need to decide on which DBS system to implant. And I would say that they are all good, and they all get the job done. They do, however, differ in the details, so arrange meetings with the manufacturers to get presentations, talk with your colleagues, and decide what is optimal for you. So, you now have the tools you need to implant an electrode, but DBS is more than just implanting electrodes. And you should aim to create a multidisciplinary DBS team. The neurosurgeon is of course here of some importance, and there are examples of single neurosurgeons who recruit and evaluate patients, perform the procedure and do the programming. But this is not a good idea. Another suboptimal solution is to have a single neurosurgeon who receives and sends patients to single neurologists. To have a team, you need at least 2 persons, and then a neurologist is a good choice. The DBS nurse is the most important person in my team, but in other teams her role will be covered by the neurologist. The DBS nurse has in our team an important organizational role, making sure that the pre- and post-operative evaluations are done in accordance with our guidelines. But their most important task is, of course, programming after surgery. Our neuropsychologist will mainly decide if the Parkinsonian patients can safely undergo a bilateral DBS procedure, or if the inevitable cognitive decline has reached a point where surgery is contraindicated. We have also other persons in our team, and others teams might include a neuropsychologist, neurophysiologist, a radiologist, and you will have to find a solution that is best for you. Then discuss with your team how you will work and create protocols for how to evaluate, select, treat and follow up your patients, and make it clear who will do what when. If you can find a standardized and minimalized workflow where every cog in the wheel knows what to do and when to do it, then DBS can be surprisingly uncomplicated. The work can be done in many ways, but find a way that suits you. And you will have to decide which conditions to treat and how to manage these will differ. And here, essential tremor is simple. And dystonia is not very complicated. But Parkinson's disease is more complex, both regarding evaluation and follow-up, and requires a more detailed protocol. And when you have decided what to do, you need to decide also when to do it. And I personally find it very valuable to perform these procedures on dedicated days. This will make it easier to coordinate the work of your unit and its members. Not all procedures are equally simple, and when you start with DBS, then if possible start with a few cases of PSA or VIM DBS for essential tremor. This is the simplest procedure regarding targeting, and it is in many patients performed unilaterally. Further, patient selection and evaluation is simple, and importantly, it is the easiest target for the programmer to learn the basics, since the effect on tremor is immediate. Also rather simple is to perform the same procedure unilaterally in elderly patients with tremor-dominant Parkinson's disease that are not considered suitable for bilateral STN DBS. Then you can continue with bilateral STN DBS for Parkinson's disease. Also here, it is quite simple to identify the target, but patient selection and evaluation is somewhat more complicated, and for that reason start with a few patients with tremor-dominant disease. This will also give the programmer a chance to get familiar with the STN in an easier manner before you proceed to non-tremor dominant cases. It is then time to progress to the GPI, which is somewhat more complicated to target, and you can consider to start with Parkinsonian patients if you intend to perform GPI DBS for this indication, or else with dystonia. Dystonia is also more challenging for the other members of your team, since this is a heterogeneous condition and it takes time to build a large experience, and since the effects of the programming are more delayed. You can of course then proceed with more unusual indications and procedures, but I would suggest you to wait with those until you consider yourself to have an experienced DBS team. There are huge variations in how the procedures are performed, and you will have to decide on details such as doing a wake or a sleep surgery, keeping the hair or not, using microelectrode recording or only visual targeting, etc. And you need to find the best solution for you. However, there is a clear trend in the world moving away from a wake surgery with microelectrode recording to a sleep surgery without MER, and I believe that it is much easier for a new center to start immediately with a sleep surgery rather than taking a detour via a wake surgery with MER. After surgery, you will need to look at location of the electrodes, and this information should also be conveyed to the person who will perform the programming. And before you start your first patients, it is good to have a basic understanding of how DBS actually works and some strategy for how to do the programming. And often the DBS manufacturer is willing to help you get started with the first patients and to give you a good introduction to the DBS system you have chosen. You have to decide when and how to start the stimulation. The stimulation can be started directly when the patient has recovered from surgery, but often the start is delayed, typically with about 4 weeks, in order to avoid influence from microlesional effects. And this has also certain psychological advantages. And you have to plan when to follow up and optimize the stimulation. Keeping track of the patients is easy when you have a few of them, but can be challenging when you have several hundreds. For that reason, make a list of all patients, and a low-tech Excel sheet is here sufficient. Too many patients might be difficult, but I would say that a far more common problem in DBS is finding enough patients. If we look at Sweden and my own experience, then we see that there are large differences between the region with the lowest and the highest penetration of DBS. And it is likely that this is to a certain degree a consequence of active choices that we have made. Thus, it is possible to increase the number of DBS procedures, and this can be achieved through a number of different strategies. You are dependent on a good network of referring physicians. DBS is an unusual procedure, and it would be naive or even arrogant of us to assume that everyone has a good understanding of which patients to refer and when. It might be a good idea to identify the referring physicians in your area and to provide them with relevant information about what you have to offer. The best thing is, of course, if you manage to establish a personal relation and make them find you a trustworthy person. So make sure to go to relevant meetings and to make contact with the referring physicians. Also make sure that they can always trust that you will be able and willing to help them with any DBS-related questions before or especially after surgery. We also need to make the patients become aware of DBS and more specifically about what we have to offer them. Many patients have heard about DBS and have some ideas about what it is, but their information is often not accurate and many tend to avoid DBS because they are misinformed. Often they have received much of their information from videos on the internet and assume that the procedure is done in the same manner everywhere, and this is especially true regarding awake surgery. The best way of reducing a patient's fear is by simply letting him or her meet and have a discussion with the surgeon. But we would like to reach the potential patients already before they are referred to us and before they have created misconceptions of the procedure. And for that reason, I am myself providing information on our webpage, and we have a number of videos on YouTube with information about DBS as such, and specific videos for the different conditions treated with DBS. These have been much appreciated by the patients. And of course, we are also working with the patients' associations, which are providing links to this information. And with that, I end this presentation, and I hope that you will be successful in building your new DBS center. Thank you for your attention.